Right, can you hear me? I hope you guys can hear me. Am I audible to you? Right, okay, we will start the session. Can you hear me properly? Please pass me a message. Am I audible to you? Right, okay. Right, I hope you guys can see the screen as well. Right, okay, so we will start the session. So today we are going to start our new short story. Last week we completed the interpreter of melodies and we are going to write some target questions as well. Since we have completed the short story, it doesn't mean that we have finished that. We have to write some target questions and we have to go through some quotations. Then only you will get the complete understanding. So you should know how to write answers and what kind of questions will be there when it comes to your advanced level literature paper. So after completing that, I actually started our next short story, which is actually The Thing Around Your Neck by Chimamanda Adichie, right? So the previous short story which we discussed, it discussed about the conflict between the traditional society and modern society. I explained you, Jhumpa Lahiri discusses about the conflicts related to the modern society and traditional society. But today we are going to discuss a short story which actually discusses about the post-colonialism, or else we call that colonial values. What kind of colonial values and post-colonial values, and what kind of identity problems actually faced by people when it comes to these developing countries and developed countries. So she is known to be a very popular writer, and she actually highlights about the problems related to first immigrants from different types of Asian countries and African countries who move to these developed countries, and what kind of troubles and tribunals that they face, even in Sri Lanka. Now, the tendency of Sri Lankan people, most of the youngsters, they like to move to developed countries like Canada, Australia, England. So this particular character in this particular short story, Apunna, she is also that type of a character. She is also chasing her dreams. She has a lot of ambitions, and she is originally from Nigeria, and she is moving to America. She had a lot of dreams in her life to achieve. So her story is very similar to the story of Sri Lankan boys and girls. After their A-level exam, they also like to go to Canada, Australia, United States. Likewise, they like to migrate. So when the migration occurs, what kind of troubles and tribunals these people face? What kind of problems, what kind of differences that they feel, what kind of culture shock that they face? These things are actually taken into consideration in this particular short story. So last week I gave you a small description, if I am not mistaken, about the writer. I hope that you guys have completed it, right? So basically, before going to the explanation, we will get some idea about the writer. As I told you, this particular writer is known to be a very popular writer when we discuss about post-colonial literature, right? First and foremost, as advanced level students, you have to understand what do you mean by post-colonial literature. Now, post-colonial literature refers to, now we have to discuss about Sri Lankan literature, we have to discuss about Elizabethan period, Victorian period. Likewise, these literature pieces can be divided according to the time frames that they were written, right? According to the social cultural background. Now, as an example, if you write a short story in Sri Lanka in English medium, that particular short story comes under the category of Sri Lankan literature. Simple as that. It comes under the category of Sri Lankan literature. Now, just like that, when it comes to our syllabus, we have poems written in Elizabethan period, Victorian period, right? Then we have poems from metaphysical period, likewise. So this particular short story actually belongs to the post-colonial period. Now, first and foremost, you have to be familiar with what do you mean by this post-colonial literature, post-colonial era. Now, as you know, even Sri Lanka, we also actually colonized by British for a certain time period, right? You know about that. We were known to be a colony of British for a long time period. So when we were a colony, whatever the social, economical, political values embraced by British at that time period, we also embrace that. Now, as an example, this is not our traditional cloth. This is not our traditional cloth. We have actually taken this cloth from British. Now, as an example, English is not our traditional language, right? English is not our traditional language. So we have taken that language from the colonizers. So we don't normally use spoon and fork when we eat, right? So nowadays we do that. So we have also taken that from the colonizers. Likewise, so you can understand after we were colonized, certain value systems were given by colonizers to us, and even after they went back to their country, right? Those values can be seen in our society. Those values can be seen in our society. Still we use English language. Still we use this fork, knife in order to eat, right? We think that it gives some kind of value to us. Still we like to enjoy this kind of clothes because we feel that it is very comfortable to us. Likewise, now this post-colonial means after the colonization period. After the colonization period, what kind of value systems, what kind of cultural values are actually practiced by these people, right? So when it comes to writing, most of the writers, they highlighted about these values. Those writers are known to be post-colonial writers. Now, Chimamanda Adichie can be taken as a writer who always tries to highlight these post-colonial values when it comes to her short stories. We have another very popular writer in the world. He is known to be Chinua Achebe, who wrote the novel called Things Fall Apart. If you can read that, it clearly shows us what kind of problems actually faced by natives because of these colonizers. Because these colonizers, they actually came to our country in order to earn money. We all know that. At the same time, they have done a considerable damage to our native language. They have done a considerable damage to our culture. They have done a considerable damage to our social system. We have to accept that. As a result of that, most of the people, they still actually embrace English language. They still actually embrace their social values. So certain writers, they were against that. They did not like that. Can you understand? So these set of writers are known to be post-colonial writers. So they wrote about the after effects of colonization. They wrote about the after effects of colonization. So today we are going to discuss about such a writer. She is known to be Chimamanda Adichie. She is known to be a very popular writer. So this particular short story that we are going to discuss today, The Thing Around Your Neck, is the title of the book, the short story. You can download the short story, the entire short story collection actually. So this is the title of the book, right? The Thing Around Your Neck. There are other stories as well. So she actually tries to highlight what kind of troubles and tribunals faced by Nigerian people because of this colonization, because of this colonial values, what kind of problems that they face. Even in this particular short story, our main character is Apunna. She is moving to America from Nigeria, right? Because she had a lot of dreams in her life. She wanted to get her higher education and she wanted to achieve so many things, right? That is what we call American dream. She chased after American dream because she believed that she can achieve anything outside Nigeria, right? According to her, Nigeria is not a developed country. Just like you guys now, you also like to go to another country, right? To settle, as I told you, right? America, Australia, or something like that. So this particular lady is also like that. And once she went to America, before she is going to America, she thought that, okay, I can achieve the entire world. I can enjoy myself. I can achieve my dreams, right? So she was actually chasing toward the American dream. But soon after she went to America, she realized that she is going to face number of problems. So in this particular short story, we discussed about different types of troubles and tribunals faced by her. Not only by Apunna, but almost all the young boys and girls. We call them first generation immigrants, right? First generation immigrants who actually move to other countries and what kind of problems that they face culturally, socially, economically, politically, right? All these problems are discussed in this particular short story. But before going to the short story, we should know about the writer. So I hope that you guys have completed this part last week. So it is important to have some kind of idea about the writer because when you are writing answers, you have to have that mindset in you, right? So you have to know about the background of that particular writer and what kind of books actually written by her and what kind of mindset that she has when it comes to her writing. All these information are very much important for advanced level literature students, right? So when you study about a certain short story or a poem or a novel, make sure to have a very good understanding in your mind about these writers. Okay, we will read. Adichie was born in Enugu, Nigeria, but grew up in Nsukka. Her father was the first professor of statistics in Nigeria, and her mother was the first female registrar at the University of Nigeria. So basically, she comes from a very educated background, right? You can understand she can be identified as a lady who comes from a very much educated background, right? That part you have to remember. Okay then. Adichie studied medicine and pharmacy at the University of Nigeria and edited the student magazine, The Compass. When Adichie was 19, she received scholarship to study communications at Drexel University in Philadelphia, right? So she gets a scholarship. So she can be identified as a very much studious girl. And because of her academic excellence, she actually won a scholarship, right? So even though she studied biology and medicine, she was into writing. That part you have to remember. She was into writing. She enjoyed writing, right? So that knowledge you have there when it comes to the writer. So we will move on for the other explanations, right? Okay, I hope you guys can see the screen. Adichie began writing her first novel, Purple Hibiscus, while completing her final year at Eastern Connecticut University. In 2005 and 2006, Adichie was a Hodder Fellow at Princeton University, and 2 years later, she completed a second master's degree in African Studies at Yale. Her novels have won a number of prizes. She is spoken at several TED events and regularly teaches writing workshops. So she is known to be a very popular writer, and most importantly, you have to remember, she is a writer who tries to highlight social problems, economical problems, social interruptions actually faced by these African people. Don't forget that. We have to remember her background. She comes from Nigeria. Can you understand now? Jhumpa Lahiri is also someone like that, where she had her roots in India, right? Even though now she is living in a developed country, she had her roots in India. So whenever she writes a short story, she never forgets to mention certain places related to India, right? Even in the story, what do you call that? We discussed the interpreter of melodies. You identified how she mentions about the Indian setting and how she mentions about the connection between this Indian setting and what do you call Western setting, right? When you read the short story, you can understand it. So, however, what I want to highlight here, my dear students, even you can highlight this. You can write down the note later by referring to the recording. Now, what I was trying to explain is that when you take a writer, when these writers actually write something, it can be a Sri Lankan writer or else African writer, American writer, definitely they add something from their culture. Definitely they add something from their culture. So this is very much common to Chimamanda Adichie as well, right? She also adds about the culture, about the tradition, about the background that she lives, right? When she writes the story. So this part is something very much important that we have to pay our attention. So now I have actually explained you key aspects, right? Before coming to this explanation, I have explained you key aspects. Today we started post-colonial literature. So you should understand what do you mean by post-colonial literature, what kind of impression, what kind of perspective these post-colonial writers had when it comes to their literary work and what kind of things that they wanted to highlight. When we read these post-colonial writers, what we can realize here is that what kind of effect actually these post-colonial values had on them, right? When it comes to their social life, when it comes to their political life, economy, and everything, right? It has affected. Now, when I read the story, I will explain you what are the places that we can highlight these post-colonial effects, right? Okay. So we received some kind of information about this particular writer. So you have to remember about the writer as well. She is known to be a very profound writer. Even today, she continues her writing, right? She is known to be one of the most phenomenal writers that we have ever seen. When we read the story, even you can understand that. If you have time, you can go to internet, you can download her short stories and you can watch them and you can read them and you will realize that she is kind of an amazing writer. And make sure to remember about Chinua Achebe as well, who wrote Things Fall Apart. Very small book. If you can read at least the summary, you can understand the African setting. Or else, my dear students, after the introduction to the author, we will move on to something important. So I am going to discuss you an important term. What is this term actually? This term is known to be Anglophone literature, right? We discussed about post-colonial literature, and with that, we have to remember this term as well. What is the term I have highlighted here? Anglophone literature. What do you mean by Anglophone literature? I have given you some idea here. I hope that you guys can see the screen, right? What do you mean by Anglophone literature? Literature written in English, literature written outside of Great Britain. Now, why I have used the word outside of Great Britain? I told you what happened. Now, Great Britain, they actually wanted to conquer certain other countries using their power, political power and military power. They used to conquer certain countries, and they conquered Sri Lanka as well, right? They conquered Sri Lanka as well. I told you what happened. This is what we call the post-colonial effect, right? So the post-colonial literature is also known to be the Anglophone literature. We can use that term as well. Now, soon after they came to these countries, what actually happened? They wanted to show to these countries that we are much more advanced in culture, tradition, technology, and religion than you. Can you understand? They actually neglected, ill-treated our native value systems, our social systems, our religion. They neglected them. They ill-treated them. They thought that we are a set of barbarians. They thought that native people are a set of barbarians. They believe that we know everything. We came to these countries in order to make you civilized. You are not civilized. Can you understand my explanation? That is how they thought. That is how they thought. But in reality, we were civilized more than them. When British came to Sri Lanka, actually, most of the Sri Lankans, they were civilized, right? They were very much civilized when British came to Sri Lanka, right? So, however, these British people had the mindset that, okay, we came to these countries in order to civilize them. They are known to be barbarians. They don't know any social values. They don't have any ethics. They don't have a religion to follow. They are worshipping all these trees, stones, and everything, right? We are the ones who are going to introduce them the proper religion, proper tradition. That was the mentality that they had. That is what we call colonial mentality. That is what we call colonial mentality, right? That part you have to remember. Concentrating on literature of West and South Africa, India, and the Caribbean third world. So soon after they went back to their countries, right? Most of the Sri Lankan writers, most of the Asian writers, most of the African writers, they wrote about this effect. That is what we call Anglophone literature, or else we call post-colonial literature. Now, I can't exactly tell you that we suffocated from this incident. Like, now there are certain positivities as well. Now, if you take English as a language, right? Today, we cherish English as a language because British people came to Sri Lanka and they colonized us. Just imagine that if Chinese came to Sri Lanka and they actually colonized us, what will happen? We will learn Chinese. So there are certain positivities and negativities as well, right? Try to understand. But what matters is once they came to our country, we lost our identity. We lost our tradition. We lost our culture. As a result of that, we believe, okay, we have to live according to the colonial mindset, according to the colonial values. That is what we thought. Can you understand? So most of the writers, they understood this effect and they wrote about this. Most of them, they did not like, right? Most of them, they did not like British tradition, British culture, colonial mindset. So they wrote their poems, novels, short stories against that. So that is what we call Anglophone literature. In Anglophone literature, we discuss poems, short stories, novels, which wrote outside British, outside England, in other colonial places outside England. And most of these novels, short stories were written, right? Most of these short stories, novels were written attacking the colonial mindset, attacking British people, right? Because these people wanted to save their native culture, native tradition, native language, right? Even in Sri Lanka, even in India, even in African continents as well. So this type of short stories, this type of novels, this type of poems actually comes under the category of Anglophone literature, or else we use the word post-colonial literature, right? Anglophone literature or else post-colonial literature. Described by some critics as the empire writing back. What do you mean by empire writing back? Now, the British people, when they came to these colonies, when they were colonizing all these countries, they actually created the name by themselves, right? They actually created the name, right? What was the name actually created by them? Can you remember, right? The empire where sun doesn't set. The empire where sun doesn't set. Hiru Nobasina Adhirajya. I hope that you may have heard the word. Why they have used that term? In our empire, right? The sun will not set down. Why? Because they have achieved a lot of countries. A lot of countries were under their colonial rule. So when sun is setting down to Sri Lanka, sun will rise from Africa. So Sri Lanka and Africa, they both belong to them. Can you understand? That is why they said England or Great Britain is the emperor where the sun does not set. Can you understand? That was the mindset that they had, right? So, however, once they have given up their colonial countries, most of the people who lived in these colonial countries, they wrote against them. They criticized the colonial values, right? So most of the African writers, most of the Asian writers, they actually colonized, they actually criticized these colonial values, and they did not like these colonial values. So this particular short story also discusses about the repercussions of these colonial values, colonial mindsets, right? Even today in Sri Lanka, we have the colonial mindset. We believe that if something is produced in Sri Lanka, that is not good. What we believe is that, okay, right? If something is good, it should be imported. It should be imported. If we produce something in Sri Lanka, we don't have a good quality. We don't like to buy them. That is what we call colonial mindset. We believe that, okay, foreigners know more than us. That is our colonial mindset. Can you understand, right? So most of the writers, they criticize them. So you have to remember about this Anglophone literature part. Okay, then we have to pay attention towards Nigeria as well. Now, why we are going to pay attention towards Nigeria? I told you the writer is originally from Nigeria, and Akunna, who is the main character in the short story, Akunna is from Nigeria, right? She was originally from Nigeria, and she moves to America in order to achieve her dreams. Because America is known to be a country where if you have a will, you have a way. You can earn whatever the amount that you like if you can sacrifice. Can you understand? So that was the colonial mindset. Nigeria is also known to be a very rich country with biodiversity and diversity among people when it comes to social values. Right? Nigeria is known to be a very important country. But Akunna did not like to live in this particular place. Just like our Sri Lankan boys and girls, they don't also like to stay in Sri Lanka. Right? They like to move to Canada, Australia, or somewhere like that. So Akunna also like that. Can you understand? She had that colonial mindset and she actually wanted to go to America. So when we discuss about the story, when we come to Chimamanda Adichie's native country, right, and Akunna's native country, we have to pay our attention towards Nigeria as well. The largest population of any African country in West Africa along the eastern coast of the Gulf, Ghana, and just north of the equator. Politically, Nigeria is divided into 36 states. Now, why Nigeria is divided into 36 states? The main reason is when you refer to most of the African countries, my dear students, what we can realize there is that they have a lot of conflicts inside the country among these tribal groups, right? Among these tribal groups, they have a lot of conflicts, right? So as a result of that, the country was actually divided. The country was actually divided, right? So you can realize that when we read the story. The nation's capital was moved from Lagos, the country's largest city, to Abuja on 12th December 1991. English is the official language of Nigeria, used in all government interaction and state-run schools. So, however, now how English actually became the native language of Nigeria? How? Because of the colonization. These colonial people, they came to Nigeria. They are the ones who introduced this Christianity, and they introduced English language as well. And most of the Nigerian people were taken as slaves to the other countries. Can you understand? So that is how they actually planted their colonial mindset in Nigerian people. Now they have long gone, but even though they have long gone, right, whatever the mindset that they have created in Nigerian people can be still seen, right? Akurna can be taken as the best example. Now, being a native girl, she thinks that more than Nigeria, America is super. But once she goes there, she realizes the fact that she was wrong, right? She thinks that America is a better place where she can achieve all the dreams. But soon after she goes to America, she realized what kind of troubles and tribunals that she is going to face. Can you understand? So when we read the story, we can understand that. So that is the colonial mindset. Even in Sri Lanka, we have that mindset. They create that mindset in us. You should come to Canada. You should go to Australia. You should go to other countries. Then only you can understand the world. Then only you can see the world. That is true. I am not arguing about that. But make sure to understand they don't tell you a certain part of the story. There is some kind of story that they don't like to reveal, right? So those parts also we have to understand, right? So basically, I told you in Nigeria, we have a very powerful social diversity. We have a lot of tribal groups. They live together, and they have a lot of languages as well. This extra knowledge will definitely help you in order to understand the short story. Now, the culture of Nigeria is shaped by Nigeria's multiple ethnic groups. The country has over 521 languages and over 250 dialects and ethnic groups. The four largest ethnic groups are the Hausa and Fulani, who are predominant in the north. So I told you, the country did not actually become developed because of what reason? Problems among these tribal groups. Can you understand? So a lot of tribal groups can be seen when you take the society with a lot of diversity. A diverse society, Nigeria. A diverse society, right? So more than the diversity can be seen, more than Sri Lanka, we can see a clear diversity there, right? Different types of social groups, different types of tribal groups. They have different cultures, different traditions, right? In the same country. So it is very difficult to connect them together, right? As you can see here, the four largest ethnic groups are the Hausa, Fulani, who are predominant in the north, the Igbo, who are predominant in the southeast. I told you about novel to read. If you are doing literature, you have to read novels. What is the novel that I recommended? Can you remember? Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. In that particular novel, he discusses about the Igbo culture, right? Where he discusses about how these people actually, how their tradition, how their culture was actually fallen apart because of these colonizers. How they actually gave up their native values, native cultural values because of these colonizers, right? These colonizers come to this particular village and they establish a church, right? They establish a church. As a result of that, the entire place, the entire people were actually converted into Christianity. So they lost their authentic culture, authentic tradition. So in that particular book, he discusses about that. So make sure to read, right? Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. He is also a post-colonial writer. And the Yoruba, who are predominant in the southwest. So as you can understand, I just wanted to give you an idea about this Nigerian culture, Nigerian setting. I hope that you can understand it. Okay, we will move on to the next part, right? And I have to highlight another important point, my dear students, in this lecture. That is, most of these developing countries like Sri Lanka, like Nigeria, and most of the African countries, the problem that they face is, now I told you about colonization, right? Those days, they used to colonize us using their military power. Can you understand now? British Army, they came to Sri Lanka and they colonized us because they had military power. They had money, they had military power, they had political power. But today, right, this point is very important, my dear students. But today, they actually colonize us using their monetary power, using their political power. Sometimes they use military power as well. Even today, even today, most of the developing countries are colonized by these colonizers. We don't know about it, but eventually you will get to know about it, right? So when we take Sri Lanka as a developing country, we all know what kind of troubles and tribunals we faced during this time period because of this foreign debt, right? We could not actually pay the foreign debt. As a result of that, Sri Lanka was actually neglected and ill-treated. Internationally, as a country, who could not pay this foreign debt, right? So as a result of that, we actually wanted to get the help of IMF, International Monetary Fund. So when we go to that particular place in order to get some kind of support, what actually happened? Most of these colonizers, they are the ones who are actually ruling this IMF, right? United States of America, Great Britain, right? Those countries are the ones who are actually controlling this IMF, International Monetary Fund. So they put us certain restrictions. Can you understand? They put us certain restrictions. Okay, we will give you money, but you have to accept this. Okay, we will give you money in order to pay for fuel or in order to pay anything, right? But you have to accept these restrictions. You have to accept these principles. Then only we will provide you money. That is what we call the neocolonization, or else we call the new phase of colonization. Today, they don't come to our country with thousands and thousands of soldiers, and they don't actually attack us. They do attack us, but in a different manner. Try to understand. So English literature students, they should be very much aware of this, right? They attack us in a different way. They have a different mindset now, right? That is how they actually control almost all the countries. They use their monetary power. They use their political power in order to control these countries. This is what I am going to discuss. I hope you guys can see the screen. Neocolonialism or neo-imperialism is a geopolitical practice of using capitalism, business globalization, and cultural imperialism to influence a country instead of either direct military control, right? So here we don't use military control. We don't send soldiers, right? We don't send soldiers. We don't have direct fights, but they are going to control us using what? Using business globalization, right? There are so many businesses in this world, right? They are the ones who are actually creating a huge impact when it comes to these third world countries, right? When it comes to gas, when it comes to wheat, right? The Prima company is known as a global company. If they say that, okay, from tomorrow onwards, we are not going to give you wheat, we don't have bread, we will die. Can you understand? So they can control the countries, right? They have that power. So here, what I want to highlight, my dear students, still we discuss about this colonialism, right? We cannot actually get rid of this topic. Still these countries, right? Most of the countries actually, they control us. They control us using a different methodology. Now their procedure is different. This is what I have highlighted. Business globalization, cultural imperialism, right? So we have cultural imperialism as well. Now, when you refer to our culture, our tradition, do we have something like that? Most of the cultural values that we have taken from other countries, right? Hip-hop music, rock music, metal music. I'm not telling they are not good. I'm not telling that they are negative. I'm telling you what kind of impact that they have created to our culture. That is what I want you to highlight. I am not telling that you should not listen to Imagine Dragons or BTS. Right? I'm not telling that. I'm telling you what kind of impact that they have created. Right? Now, those people don't listen to our singer songs, right? But we listen to their songs. Can you remember? Can you understand? Right? So that shows us whether we like it or not, we have also become a part of this neocolonialism, right? We have also become a part of this neocolonialism, right? Or else we call this political hegemony. It's another word that literature students should be familiar with. Political hegemony. We are a set of small companies. They control our entire country. It can be Coca-Cola, it can be Prima company, or it can be anything, right? They are the ones who decide the future of our country. Can you understand? They are the ones who decide the future of our country, whether we like it or not. That is what we call Neocolonialism. So most of the Asian countries, including Sri Lanka, most of the Asian countries, including Sri Lanka, most of the African countries, including Nigeria, we face this challenge. As a country, we face this challenge. That is what I have highlighted. Describing the influence of the developed countries on internal affairs of the developing world despite the decolonization that occurred after the Second World War. So here we discuss about what kind of impact actually created by these colonizers after the Second World War. They have not actually controlled us using their military power, but using their political power, using their neocolonialism or imperialism, they have controlled us. Even today, they are controlling us. Even today, they are controlling us. Even our syllabus, even our educational principles, even our tradition, even our culture is actually designed by them. They are the ones who are going to decide whether we like it or not. We can't control. It is beyond our control. We can't control them. So make sure to remember when you read, when you study this particular short story, that mindset should be there in you. We are going to learn about a short story where it discusses about the negative effects of post-colonialism and neo-colonialism as well. Right? Neo-colonialism means the new colonial principles. Can you understand up to that point? Please pass me a message. If you can't understand, please tell me. What about Shyam? What about Abhisheka? Can you understand? Please pass me a message. Shall I move on from here? I need a message from you. Right? Still, we are not in the short story. I am giving you the background. Before understanding a short story, you should know the background. Now, if you are watching all these Marvel movies, I don't know whether you are a Marvel fan, right? Spider-Man and Infinity War and Civil War or whatever. You should know the background, Niputa. You should know the background, how it happens. Right? All these historical incidents you should know. So before learning a literature piece, you should know about the background. Can you understand? Without understanding that background, you will never be able to understand literature. That is not going to work. Okay. So this is what I was talking about. This is what I was talking about. Can you see this picture? I will enlarge and show you. Now, if you pay your attention very carefully for this picture, you can understand Africa then. Africa then. Can you see the picture? Africa then. So you can understand how this British soldier having a gun is controlling African people, right? They have not changed, right? They are taken as slaves. This is post-colonialism, right? They have colonized Africa and they have taken all the gold and valuable jewelries and all the minerals to their countries, and they took these people as slaves. They took these people as slaves. Can you understand? Come to modern society. Africa now, the modern situation. I hope you guys can see the screen. So when we refer to modern situation, what has happened? This person has not changed. Can you understand? The person has not changed, but look at the colonizers. Look at the colonizers. They have changed. Now, instead of the gun, they have law, right? They have law. They have different types of foreign organizations, right? IMF, right? Or else we can call UNICEF, right? UNESCO, right? They are using these international organizations in order to control these people, in order to control these continents. So this is what we call post-colonial, right? This is what we call neocolonialism, or else we call the imperialism, right? Today also the same thing happens. Today also the same thing happens, but in a different manner. Now they don't use guns and everything, right? They have a different mindset, right? Can you understand? They have a different mindset. This is the key point that you have to remember. From this picture, you can understand what I have explained. Right, okay. Now, I want to give you a small summary about the story. I hope that you guys can see the screen. So, now we will move on to the story. We will get to know some idea about the story, and then we can move on. We will read the story and get to know about it. Now, before going to that place, let's read this. What happens in the story? This is the introduction. So, we are doing The Thing Around Your Neck by Chimamanda Adichie, post-colonial literature, advanced level. Now, the unnamed female narrator, he uses the second person voice now. This is something very much interesting. When we read the short story, you will realize that she has written the entire story using second person narration. Now, when we take literature, when you tell a story, when you write a story, basically we use first person, second person, and third person. So narrative system is something important. I want you to highlight that. So a story can be narrated in several ways. I hope you guys can see the screen. The story can be narrated in several ways in literature. We call them narration. Right? We call them narration. So a story can be related in several ways. A narration means how a story is related. How a story is related. That is what we call a narration. Right? How a story is related. That is what we call a narration. Basically, there are a couple of narrative techniques that you have to be familiar with. Especially as advanced level students, even all your students, they have that idea. You can jot down this if you like. So basically, we have first person narration. First person narration is the most famous narrative technique that we use in literature. This is what we call first person narration. First person narration means you can use pronouns like I, we. So you will be a part of the story and you can use these two pronouns in order to tell your story. This is the most used one, right? Third person narration is also used, but this is the most used one when it comes to English literature, especially when it comes to short stories, right? You will be a part of the story and you will narrate the story. That is what we call first person narration. In Sinhala, we call Uttama Purusha Drishtikoni. Uttama Purusha Drishtikoni, right? First person narration. Then we have second person narration. Now, this particular story, right? Our story, what is the story? The thing around your neck, right? The thing around your neck. The thing around your neck. This particular short story is written from second person narration. In second person narration, we use the pronoun you and your. Right? We use the pronoun you and your when it comes to second person narration. So if you read this particular short story, you can download that from internet. You will realize that entire story is told by Akunna using second person narration. The entire story is actually narrated by Akunna. Akunna is the name of the girl. She narrated the entire story using second person narration, where we have used you and your as pronouns. And the next one is known to be third person narration. So basically, third person narration can be divided into two parts. Right? Third person narration can be divided into two parts. We have third person point of view and we have third person omniscient point of view. Third person point of view, third person omniscient point of view. Third person point of view means we use he, she, it, they, likewise. Different types of pronouns in order to tell the story. Third person omniscient point of view refers to we use those pronouns and sometimes even the writer comes in the middle. The writer, the narrator, he or she also comes in the middle and tells the story to us. That is what we call third person omniscient point of view. So third person point of view basically has got two parts. Number one, third person point of view. Third person point of view means the writer will not come in the middle, right? The writer will be separated from the story. The writer tells the story with the use of pronouns. But third person omniscient point of view means, right, sometimes the writer comes in the middle and he gives some kind of explanations about these characters. So basically in literature, we have four types of point of views. First person, second person, third person omniscient point of view. Now this particular short story is written from second person point of view. The entire story is written using the pronoun you. This is a very difficult narrative point actually, I must say that. It is a very difficult narrative point, very difficult. But however, Chimamanda Adichie has won that battle. She has won that battle. She has nailed it, right? So all the story, the entire story is actually depicted to us using second person narration. Very powerful explanation, very powerful, right? It is little bit difficult to read, but you can read it and then you will understand. Right? So make sure to remember about the narration. Narration plays a key role. So what are the 4 types? You have first person narration, right? First person narration, where you use I and we. Then we have second person narration, where our story is actually from second person, right? Where we use you and your, right? Second person narration. Then third one, we have third person narration. Third person narration, where we can use we, you, we can use she, we can use it, we can use nimal, anything, right? And finally, we have third person omniscient point of view, right? Third person omniscient point of view. Third person omniscient point of view, where even the narrator comes in the middle and tells us the story. Not only the characters, even the narrator comes in the middle. Even the narrator can come in the middle and he can explain what is going on. Can you understand? So basically, we have 4 types. In Sinhala, we call them Uttama Purusha Drishtikone, Madhyama Purusha Drishtikone, Prathama Purusha Drishtikone, Prathama Purusha Sarvavedi Drishtikone. Sarvavedi means even the writer can come in the middle and explain the situation. That is what we call Sarvavedi. Right? If you want, you can write down, you can get the recording. So just listen to the lecture, then later you can cover up the notes. I think. Make sure to go through the recording and listen to it, and then you can do it. Okay, let's go to the story. I just gave you an idea about this narration, who uses the second person narration addressing herself as you. So you means Apunna is addressing to herself. Right? This is also very special because I told you her native country is Nigeria. Right? Her native country is Nigeria. Now she is moving to United States. She is moving to United States. Now she doesn't have anyone. She is moving to her uncle's place, but uncle tries to abuse her. Right? As a result of that, she had to live alone. Right? She could not achieve whatever the dreams and ambitions that she has got, but unfortunately, she had to return Nigeria again. We will discuss about that. So isolation. She is very much isolated. We discuss isolation as a very powerful theme. Now, what was her idea? She thinks that, okay, she can achieve that dream. But what was the dream actually? She thought that, okay, I am going to achieve my dream in America, the American dream. What do you mean by the American dream? I will explain that as well. American dream. American dream is something important. You have to pay your attention. So throughout this particular short story, we discuss about American dream. What is the meaning of that term? American dream. That term you have to remember when you discuss about this particular. So we discuss about American dream. What do you mean by this American dream? She chases the American dream. Any idea? What do you mean by this American dream? She chases the American dream. What do you mean by this term, American dream? So she believed that when you give more, you will get more than that. Countries like America, in simple terms, in countries like America, when you can sacrifice a lot for something, you will get a huge benefit. So whatever the dreams and ambitions which you could not achieve in your native country, in Sri Lanka, obviously you can achieve them in America. That is what we call American dream. Can you understand? Whatever the dreams that you could not achieve in your motherland, in your native land, you can achieve them in America. That is what we call American dream. Can you understand? Unfortunately, in this particular short story, Akunna, even though she wanted to achieve the American dream, she fails to do that. She fails to do that. She desperately wanted to achieve the American dream, but she failed to do that. Right? So that is what we call the American dream. The American dream means whatever the dreams and ambitions that a person could not achieve in his or her motherland can be achieved in a different country if you do that sacrifice. The more you sacrifice, the more you will be benefited. Can you understand? The more you work hard, the results will be much more happier. That is what we call American dream. If you have a will, you have a way. If you have a will, you have a way. Any person, irrespective of caste, race, religion, tall, short, you can achieve your dreams. That is what we call American dream. Can you understand? Irrespective of your age, irrespective of your religion, you can achieve your target. That is what we call American dream. Okay, we will move on. Right? So these places should be in your mind, right? A young woman who wins the visa lottery and comes to the United States, she thinks everyone in America has a big house, a car, and a gun, right? That's what she thought. So that is what we call the American dream. Can you see that? She thinks that, okay, certain things that I could not achieve in Nigeria, because Nigeria is a developing country. So here we have a clear contrast, actually. So she believed that, okay, in America, right, what do you have? A big house, a car, and a gun. Her relatives asked her to send her things from America. So very similar to Sri Lankan context. Students, very similar to Sri Lankan context. In Sri Lanka also, right? If your elder brother or else your elder sister is in America, right, you will say, Akka, send me an iPhone, na? I need a PlayStation, na? So here also the same situation. Can you understand? Here also the same situation. I hope you can understand, right? America has a big house, a car, and a gun. Her relatives asked her to send her things from America. Akunna goes to Maine. This is the place where she is going to live with her uncle, right? Akunna goes to Maine to live with an uncle who gets her job and registers her for classes at the community college. So Akunna is going to live with her uncle. So uncle seems to be a kind of a very supportive man. At the very beginning, we feel like that. But later we realize that this particular uncle is going to abuse this particular girl. So these are the problems actually faced by the first immigrants. Right? When you come to an unknown place, even though you are chasing your dreams, even though you are chasing your materialistic dreams, sometimes you can lose your life. Sometimes you can lose your principles, your values. Right? So if you are ready to give up them, yes, you can achieve your dream. Can you understand? Right? So this is what we have to understand. So Akunna wanted to achieve the American dream, but she never wanted to destroy her culture. She never wanted to destroy her tradition. She never wanted to do that. She wanted to achieve the American dream. That's true. Right? But she never thought that she will face number of troubles and tribunals, crucial circumstances when it comes to this country. Okay. Now, uncle seems to be a very good person, right? But later, you can realize actually problems faced by him. He says, America is give and take, American dream. Make sure to highlight and write down that part. He says, America is give and take. What do you mean by give and take? American dream. American dream, right? America is give and take, American dream, right? America is give and take, American dream. People make sacrifices as he does, being the only black employee at a company that wants to appear diverse. His wife has to drive far to find someone who will style African hair. Being the only black employee at the company that wants to appear diverse, right? So here she discusses about discrimination as well, right? Here we discuss about the point of discrimination as well, right? This can be also taken as a theme. Now, most of these black African Americans from other countries, once they come to America, they are neglected and ill-treated, right? That is the reality. That is what we call discrimination based on complexion. Discrimination based on complexion, right? Discrimination based on complexion. Complexion means the skin color. Complexion means the skin color. So if your skin color is not white, obviously you will face number of troubles and tribunals in America. That idea is also mentioned. His wife has to drive far to find someone who will style African hair, but it is a good trade-off Akunna feels comfortable at his home with his wife and daughters, who speak Igbo, the culture. That is why I taught you about this. Now you know what do you mean by Igbo. Igbo means a tribe. Can you understand? I explained you this part, right? Igbo. I told you about things fall apart. Igbo culture, a very popular culture in Nigeria, right? So this uncle actually used to be a person who follows this Igbo culture, right? Who speak Igbo language and eat Nigerian food. People at college ask silly questions about Africa and about Akunna's hair. So her hair is a little bit different. As you know, they have these dreadlocks and all, right? So African people like Bob Marley. So a lot of students, they ask questions. What is this hair? What kind of hair that you have, right? So likewise. Okay. So we will move on. We are still discussing the story in a nutshell. Now, we discussed the story in a nutshell. One night, the uncle who isn't a blood relative, right? This uncle is not a blood relative, right? He's not a blood relative. Tries to force himself on her when she pushes him away. He says he will do things for her if she allows him. All women did it. The next day, she leaves, ending up in Connecticut, where she gets a job at a restaurant. The manager, Juan, pays her $1 less than the others, but he pays under the table. He says immigrants work hard. She can't go to school because she has to pay rent and college costs too much. Now you can understand her American dream. Her American dream is fading away. Can you understand? Her American dream is now fading away. Her American dream is fading away. Now, this is something really unexpected. She never thought that she will face this kind of incident. So her uncle tries to abuse. Can you understand what kind of problems these young boys and girls face? Now you may say that, no sir, I am a boy, I will never face such incidents. No, Puta. When you go to another country and when you are isolated in that particular country, you will realize, right, the importance of your family. When you become sick, no one will be there to take care of you. Can you understand? So it is easy to say that I am moving to this country, I am trying to achieve my American dream. It is easy to say. It is easy to say like that, but in reality, the situation is tough. Can you understand? In reality, the situation is tough. The manager, Juan, pays $1 less than the others, but he pays under the table. He says immigrants work hard. She can't go to school because she has to pay rent. Now she is facing a terrible trouble. What is the terrible trouble actually faced by her? What kind of terrible trouble that you can see that is actually faced by her? What is the terrible trouble? The terrible trouble is now she can't actually enjoy her life. She can't actually go through her dreams because the reason is now she has to work hard. There is no turning back now. She actually wanted to achieve her dream, but now things get a little bit harder, right? Now she works somewhere and she could not pay the college fees and she could not achieve her targets. Her American dream is fading away. She reads the syllabi for classes online and reads some of the books. She thinks of her aunts, uncles, friends, and her mother, whose salary was barely enough to pay her brother's school fees. Now, she thinks about her family. What kind of troubles and tribunals faced by her sisters and brothers? Now, she actually came to America in order to achieve her dream, right? Now, she is not going to achieve her dream. Now, she is facing some kind of unexpected problems. At the same time, she is thinking about her family as well. Now, this is actually very much thought-provoking, right? So, this is the reality of most of the first immigrants, right? Most of the children who go to their higher studies, right? When they are doing their higher studies, they have to work part-time. So, they don't enjoy. Since you see a selfie in Facebook, it doesn't mean that they are having a happy life. Try to understand, right? It's a very hard time that they have, right? It's very tough. So, Akunna also faces the same situation. She reads the syllabi for classes online and reads some of the books. She thinks of her aunts, uncles, friends, and her mother, whose salary was barely enough to pay her brother's school fees. Yet she sometimes bribed teachers for good grades, putting money in brown envelopes. Akunna never needed a bribe, but she sends half her money into similar plain brown envelopes. She doesn't write a letter, for she has nothing to write about. Now, this is where we get the idea of isolation, right? So she thinks about her family now. That family burden is also there. Now, you can understand Apunna is actually suffering from different situations, right? From different places. Now, that burden can be seen. So she is suppressed and oppressed, right? From different places, right? So she doesn't get any financial support from anyone. That is number one. Number two, she has to work really hard. Number three, her American dream is actually fading away. Number four, she has to think about her security. Number five, she has to take the responsibility of her family as well, right? So her family members are thinking that, okay, our daughter is in another country and she is earning really well, and definitely we will get the support of her. But in reality, Apunna only knows what kind of troubles and tribunals that she faces. So she does not write anything, even though she has got to write. At the end of the day, she knows that there is no point of writing. Okay, even after writing, what to do? Do you think that her parents will help her? That will never happen. Can you understand the suffocating situation here? Suffocating situation, right? Later, though, she wants to write, she wants to say how open American people are talking about private things. She wants to say how much food they leave and how they leave tips to make up for it, and how they don't control their children. So you can understand the cultural differences. How Chinua Achebe, Chimamanda Adichie, I'm really sorry, Chimamanda Adichie highlights about these differences, right? Differences when it comes to these cultures. Chimamanda Adichie, she highlights, right? So when we refer to American culture, right? So what kind of lavish lifestyle that they follow? What kind of lavish lifestyle? They follow a lavish lifestyle. Can you understand? Lavish lifestyle. She wants to say how much food they leave and how they leave tips to make up for it, and how they don't control their children. However, she doesn't write because she can't send all the presents they expect. Can you remember from the very beginning, right? These brothers and sisters, they were actually expecting something from the sister, but the sister only knows what kind of problems that she is facing. But however, she is very much independent and strong enough. She is very much resilient, where she does not actually expose her problems, her challenges to others, right? In that perspective, she is important. Nobody knows where she is. She thinks that at night something would wrap itself around her neck before you fell asleep, right? Something will wrap around your neck. Something will wrap around your neck. That is the title of the story. Did you see that? That is very much important, right? I hope you guys can see the screen. Something would wrap itself around your neck. The thing around your neck. What is this thing around your neck? The thing around your neck. What do you mean by that? The thing around your neck, right? Her pressure. Her pressure. The thing around your neck is her pressure. The pressure which comes from the family. The pressure that she faces in her day-to-day life in order to earn money. The pressure that she faces in order to achieve her American dream. The pressure that she faces as a first immigrant who came to an unknown land, and she has scattered all her hopes. The pressure is actually around her neck. The thing around your neck. Can you remember the title of the story? The thing around your neck. Now, basically, when we are going to suicide, we actually wrap something around our neck and we try to hang. What will happen? The thing around your neck gets tightened. Huh? What will happen? The thing around your neck gets tightened. You will die. You will die. That much of social pressure, that much of social pressure is undergone by Apunna. That much of social pressure is undergone by Apunna. This is what you have to understand. Arshad, can you understand? What about our young lady? Abhisheka. Arshad, no, sorry, Shreen. Arshad, right? Shreen or Arshad, I don't know. Can you understand my explanation? Now, we came to an important point. The thing around your neck. It's a very important usage. The thing around your neck. What is around Apunna's neck? Apunna is not going to suicide. There is nothing around her neck. This is actually an imagination, right? This is a symbol. So when she is about to sleep, she remembers about the pressure that she undergoes, her nostalgic memories, her isolation, her loneliness, her poverty, the fading American dream that she has. All these things are tightening her neck at night. That shows us her pressure. That shows us her pressure. So she is undergoing a lot of pressure. Now you can understand what happens to these immigrants when they come to an unknown land in order to chase their American dream. In order to chase their American dream. That part is important. Can you understand? I don't know whether other students can understand. It's a little bit difficult. I hope Abhisheka can understand. What about Shreen, right? Shreen, are you okay with my explanation? Can you understand? Right? At night, she is thinking about the pressure that she undergoes. Okay, I have to do my work. I have to send money to my brothers and sisters. I have to help them. I could not complete my education. I don't have enough money. I don't have proper security. I don't have anyone in this country. The social pressure. What kind of social pressure actually undergone by? That is what actually explained here in this particular line, right? We will write about that once we discuss the entire story. Would wrap itself around your neck. Wrap itself around your neck, right? That symbolically shows us the social pressure actually undergone by. What kind of social pressure is undergone by Akunna? We move on, right? Right. People think she is Jamaican or know little about Africa. Then she meets a young man who asks what African country she is from, and then asks if she is a Igbo or Yoruba because she does not have a Fulani face. She thinks he must be an anthropology professor, but he is too young. He traveled in Africa and she wants to scorn that because white people who liked Africa too much, too little were the same condescending, right? So now she meets a young guy, right? This young guy seems to know about African culture, African tradition, and also she thought that this young guy may be a professor of anthropology. Anthropology means a person who actually studies about the cultural, traditional values of people. Social anthropology. Anthropology means you study about the evolution of man, not from a biological perspective, but from a sociological perspective. Not from a biological perspective, right? From a sociological perspective. So this particular person actually asks about the Igbo culture, this tradition, that tradition. So Akunna was very much vigilant about this particular boy, right? The boyfriend. Later he becomes the boyfriend. He isn't like that though. He comes back and talks about other places he has traveled and says he wanted to go to Lagos. The next day she tells Juan she does not want his table. But the young man waits outside and asks her out. His eyes are the color of extra virgin olive oil, which is the only thing she loves about America. Now she has given up her American dream. Can you understand? Yeah, which is the only thing she loves about America. Now she did not like this particular boy, but eventually the boy actually wanted to meet her and they wanted to have some kind of connection. And eventually he liked this particular boy, right? He liked this particular boy and now they are actually building some kind of a connection. Why did she like? Because this particular boy knew something about African culture, African setting, right? So at first Akunna did not like him, and now Akunna seems to show some kind of interest towards him, right? But most importantly, now her American dream is fading away. Now we all know that why she came to America, right? Now her American dream is fading away. That is what happens. Okay, we will move on. Right. I hope you guys can see the screen. He is a college senior, even though he is older, right? He is older, but college senior. She is surprised he hasn't graduated because American colleges aren't like African ones whose faculty go on strike. So here she discusses about the problem in education as well. Even in Sri Lanka, what happens? These young boys and girls, they can't graduate because of the problems related to universities, right? But in a developed country, that thing cannot be seen. So she mentions about that part as well, right? He is still in school because he took a couple of years off to discover himself and travel. Surprised that people can choose not to go to school, she thinks you were used to accepting what life gave, writing down what life dictated. He asks her out the next 4 nights and she says no. Right? So Akunna is a little bit surprised about this behavior of this particular boy because he is not in a rush to complete his education as well. Now, most of the boys and girls, they want to finish it off, they want to graduate and they want to go to work. But this particular boy is not like that. He is different. Right? He asks her out the next 4 nights and she says no. But on the 5th night when he isn't there, she panics, right? So even though Akunna did not like this boy, Akunna actually wanted to be with this boy. She liked this boy. That part you have to remember, right? So in psychology, we say that the more you refuse a person, the more you like him or her. Just imagine, that is a psychological term I am using now. If you are refusing a person continuously, sometimes you may try to show to the outside world that you are refusing him, but make sure to understand, right? So inside your heart, you need him desperately, right? That is why you refuse him. That is a psychological term. Same thing happens to Akunna now. Akunna is refusing this man, right? But when the man is not to be seen, she is curious. When the man is not to be seen, she is curious, right? Okay. She panics, she prays he will be there, and when he shows up and asks her out, she says yes. So, however, now they are having kind of an intimate relationship. Akunna and this particular boy, right? They are having some kind of intimate relationship. After they have dinner at a Chinese restaurant, she opens her fortune cookie, which contains 2 blank slips of paper. Fortune cookie means some kind of a biscuit that they used to eat. I will show you in the presentation. So, however, she finds actually 2 blank slips of paper, right? They soon become comfortable together. When she watches Jeopardy, she tells him she roots for women of color first and white men last. She also tells him her father is a junior driver for a construction company. One time he had an accident and humiliated himself in front of the big man whose car he hit. When he says he understands, she says there is nothing to understand. That's the way it is, right? So they actually share their experience, and Akunna did not forget to tell about her personal experience, about her family relationships, right? So Akunna does not have anything to hide. So when we refer to Akunna's family, we can understand her family is very similar to our middle class family, right? She actually had an American dream, so she is coming from a middle class family. Here we can see her father actually faced with an accident and what kind of problems that he faced because of that. Right? When they visit an African store, he pretends to be African. She cooks for him and he vomits. He does not eat meat or MSG. When they go to Chang's, she is upset because the waiter assumes that they are not a couple, even though they go there so often together. She knows he does not understand. From his trust fund, he buys her expensive but impractical presents. When she mentions they are impractical, he buys her shoes and clothing, but she does not want presents. He buys them anyway, and she saves them for her family and friends at home. They fight and make up, and the thing around her neck starts to loosen. Now what happens, my dear students, right? The thing around her neck is getting to loose. Why is that? Now this particular boy actually helps her in order to get up from her financial burden. Right? Now she gets some kind of a support. This particular man actually buys her different types of gifts and all, shoes, clothes and everything. So she doesn't use them actually. She saves them because she knows that her brother and sister or else her family members are actually waiting for them. So this particular man actually helps her financially, and she decides to actually, okay, I will take them and I will actually save them because I want to send them. Now, the thing around her neck is getting a little bit loose now, right? Starts to loosen. Okay. Still, she knows that they are not a normal couple, but the problem is outside people, they don't recognize them as a normal couple. However, his mother says he never brought a girl home to meet them. His parents are very friendly towards her, talk about normal things and don't act as if she were exotic. He says he has problems with his parents who portioned out love like a birthday cake and would love him more if he went to law school. She tries to sympathize but gets angry and gets even angrier when he says he refused to go to their vacation cottage in Canada and take her. After she drops her glass, she cries. Now, here we can understand the problems related to this boy, right? So, the boy does not like to be with her parents because the parents are actually trying to control him too much, right? Too much control is given to this particular man. So, they love if this person actually can actually study law, right? If he went to law school, she tries to sympathize but gets angry and gets even angrier when he says he refused to go to their vacation cottage, right? So this particular person is actually refusing to go to the vacation cottage, and Apunna becomes mad because of that reason. Right. Finally, Apunna writes home and sends an address. She hears back that her father has died and decides to go home to see her family. Now, finally, what happens? Actually, their relationship is not going to become an end, actually. So it interrupts because she gets a letter saying that the father is not well, right? Finally, Apunna writes home and sends an address. She hears back that her father has died and decides to go home to see her family. Her boyfriend asks if she is coming back for good, but she says nothing. When he drives her to the airport, she hugs him tight and then lets go. Right. So the boyfriend is asking whether you are going to come back, but Apunna does not say anything. That clearly shows us Apunna understood at the end of the day, right? Her family and her family ties are more important than anything. That is what we can understand, right? Okay. Now we are going to read the story. We will read the story. This is the story that I am going to read. So you can download the story from internet, right? And then you can refer to that, right? Okay. You thought everybody in America had a car and a gun. Your uncle said aunts and cousins thought so. Right after you won the American visa lottery, they told you in a month you will have a big car, soon a big house, but don't buy a gun like those Americans, right? So here she is actually using second person narration. You can clearly see that. So you can highlight that, right? Second person narration is used. Second person narration. That is something very much important that we have to pay our attention. And basically, when you read this paragraph, you can realize the theme of American dream, right? American dream, right? She is chasing the American dream, right? Yeah, she says actually they have big house, big car. So this clearly shows us actually her materialistic values, right? They clearly show us the materialistic values, right? So people get the idea about American society looking at the big car, right? Big house. So Apunna also moves into America having that particular dream in her mind. So those parts are important to us. They trooped into the room in Lagos where you lived with your father and mother and 3 siblings, right? Leaning against the unpainted walls because there weren't enough chairs to go around, to say goodbye in loud voices and tell you with lowered voices what they wanted you to send them. So here we can understand poverty. The concept of poverty is taken into consideration. Now, if you pay your attention, the family burden, right? So here from this line, leaning against the unpainted walls because there weren't enough chairs. So here we can understand the poverty, right? Poverty. So Apunna belongs to, right? Apunna belongs to a middle class family. Poverty, right? She belongs to a middle class family. She is not rich. She belongs to a middle class family, right? Middle class family, right? She is not rich actually. So a lot of people came to wish her, and a lot of people actually expected so many things from her, right? Sort of pressure, right? Her siblings expected a lot. Her siblings expected a lot from her. right? Her siblings expected a lot from her. Now, they don't know what kind of troubles and tribunals actually gone through by this particular girl, right? These young boys and girls, they expected a lot, right? And we can clearly understand the concept of poverty. She is not from a rich family. Can you understand? She is coming from a middle class family. Okay. In comparison to the big car and house and possibly gun, the things they wanted were minor handbags and shoes and perfumes and clothes. You said, okay, no problem. So here you means apunna. You have to remember that. Huh? She has used the word pronoun you, right? So here she used the pronoun you, right? You said you means apunna, right? The main character. Apunna is the main character, right? Apunna, the main character. Now here in this particular paragraph, I want to highlight something again. You can highlight that. Now here we have a contrast, right? Contrast is used as a technique. Contrast. Now in America they had big cars, right? In America they had big cars, big houses. They had big cars, big houses, right? Everything is big. But her siblings actually wanted minor things, right? The siblings actually wanted minor things like handbags, shoes. That is a powerful contrast. Handbags, shoes. That clearly shows us their poverty level. Poverty level, right? The poverty level of the family now. Normally, they never actually asked for a big house. They never actually asked for a big car because they knew that Akunna cannot provide them. Can you understand? Her siblings knew that Akunna could not provide them. And besides, they actually wanted minor things. Even though America is known to be a big country, major, minor, contrast, big car, big house, minor handbags, shoes. So that shows their level of poverty. They never wanted to achieve the things that they could never achieve. They actually wanted simple things. That clearly shows us the middle class mentality. Again, this clearly shows us the middle class mentality. Even we have that. Middle class mentality. Sometimes our family members, right, they go to different countries and they bring us only a perfume bottle, only a handbag, right? A pair of shoes. But we are really happy about that. We really discuss about that. That shows us our middle class mentality. We can also buy them from Sri Lanka, but we have that mindset, right? So here we can understand actually the middle class mentality of these innocent siblings. They actually wanted to have shoes. They never wanted to have these big houses, big cars. They never wanted them. They actually needed actual small things, minor things. These are the key aspects that you have to understand. Right, okay. I want you to write this. Hurry up and write down. Please pass me a message after completing. So I have given you a small explanation about the things that we have discussed in the couple of paragraphs. Hurry up. Pass me a message. Hurry up and write down. Okay, right. So I have given you a explanation what actually happens in the previous slides. Make sure to download the short story. Make sure to highlight the important quotations which I have underlined, and make sure to write down important themes which I have written, right? You have to cover them. Okay. The narrator Apunna says the thought that everyone in America had their car and their gun. She wins the visa lottery, and her family members tell her that she will soon have a big car and a house, but not to buy a gun. Because in America, actually, they have legalized using weapons. If you have money, you can go and buy a gun. They gather to say goodbye and ask her to send them purses and perfumes. Right, hurry up and write down. Please pass me a message. Right, okay. Apunna's family and friends define the American dream as cars, houses, guns, and plenty of luxuries. Terming the visa lottery as such shows how the American visas are. They are something. They are something one, not just something one gets. So now you can understand what kind of value is given to this American dream. They really cherish that, right? And their mentality is also shown here. I showed you, right? They actually, even though they had the American dream to have like, oh, America, right? It's not like Nigeria, right? America is not to be a sophisticated land where you have big cars, big houses, right? Everything is big. But we don't need big things. Can you send us actually minor things like shoes, perfumes, and purses and all? Right? So their mentality, right? The middle class mentality is highlighted. Okay, right. Okay, let's read now. Your uncle in America, who had put in the names of all your family members for the American visa lottery, said you could live with him until you get on your feet. He picked you up at the airport and bought you a big hot dog with yellow mustard that nauseated you. Introduction to America, he said with a laugh, right? So this uncle, right? I told you about the uncle. Now she is going to live with her uncle. So uncle actually supported her at the very beginning, but later he became a kind of an abuser, right? He tried to abuse her. He lived in a small white town in Maine in a 30-year-old house by a lake. He told you that the company he worked for had offered him a few thousand more than the average salary plus stock options because they were desperately trying to look diverse, right? So they were desperately look diverse, right? So they were also having some kind of trouble in this particular country, but he actually wanted to provide some kind of support to this particular lady, right? That is important. They included the photo of him in every brochure, even those that had nothing to do with his unit. He laughed and said the job was good, was worth living in an all-white town, even though his wife had to drive an hour to and a hair salon that did black hair. The trick was to understand America, to know that America was give and take. You gave up a lot, but you gained a lot too, right? So here we can highlight that part. Yeah, we can see the American dream. That is why most of the people actually came to America. So from this line, you can understand that. Make sure to highlight that quotation. That is very much important, right? Yeah, he says America was give and take. You gave up a lot, but you gained a lot, right? You gave up a lot, but you gained a lot, right? So the more you sacrifice, that is what we call the American dream. The more you sacrifice, the more you can get. That is what the uncle said. So now you can understand the uncle and the aunt, all of them are actually very much socialized towards this system. But Akunna is not like that. Akunna is not ready to do that. Right, okay? So I hope you guys can understand that part. Make sure to read the short story, right? He showed you how to apply for a cashier job in the gas station on Main Street, and he enrolled you in a community college where the girls had thick thighs and wore bright red nail polish and self-tanner that made them look orange. They asked where you learned to speak English and if you had real houses back in Africa and if you would say a car before you came to America, right? So here we can understand the discrimination, right? So these college girls, they were asking number of questions from her. So from this particular quotation, we can understand what kind of discrimination actually faced, right? Here we use the word discrimination, right? What kind of discrimination is actually faced by this young lady? What kind of discrimination is faced by this young lady, right? So the people, the ladies, the girls who were in her school, in her college, they actually asked number of questions from her, right? They neglected, they ill-treated, they discriminated this girl, right? So social discrimination is also one of the themes. They asked where you learn to speak English. So they thought that English is their language, right? English is their property. That is how they thought. English is their language. That is how they thought. They asked where you learn to speak English and if you had real houses back in Africa. So they asked whether do you have a house in Africa? Are you a refugee? Right? Do you have a house even? That was the question they asked, right? If you had seen a car before you came to America, have you seen a car in your life? Obviously, right? Nigeria is not that much underdeveloped. So this is from this quotation, you can understand how these American people had that superior imperial mindset about themselves. They always neglected, ill-treated all these African American people. That was their mentality. Even today in America, the situation is very same. It has not changed. They ill-treat, they neglect African Americans, Negroes based on their skin color, complexion. Right? They gawked at your hair. Does it stand up, fall down when you take out the braids? They wanted to know all of it stands up. How? Why? Do you use a comb? So these American people, they had number of problems, right, related to her hair. So from this particular picture, you can understand, right? So basically, they have this type of hair. So this actually created a number of problems to the Native Americans, right? those college girls, they actually ask number of questions from Apurna. Why do you have hair like this, right? Why are you going to have such hair, right? How are you going to comb that? So they had number of problems. So from those problems itself, Chimamanda Adichie shows us how these girls actually neglected, ill-treated, right? She was actually outcast. She was an outcast, right? She was not recognized, right? From her outer appearance even, she was not recognized. So that is what she tries to highlight. Even though you move to another country in order to achieve your dreams, try to understand that land will never be your motherland. That land will never be your native land, even though you want to get some kind of happiness in that particular place. You can say that Canada is much more better than Sri Lanka. Australia is much more better than Sri Lanka. We have good food. We have 24 hours electricity, water supply. You can tell like that. But make sure to remember that is you will be a second citizen even though you get the citizenship. You can get the what you call permanent residence, but make sure to understand, right? You will never be accepted. That is the truth. You can get the document. There is no doubt about that. You can get the document, but you will never be accepted. Can you understand? You will never be accepted. You can get the document and say that I got the permanent residence. Now I am what you call an Australian, right? I am a Canadian. So you can tell like that, but you will never be accepted by them. That's the reality, right? Okay. So we will move on to the next part. You smile tightly when they ask those questions. Your uncle told you to expect it a mixture of ignorance and arrogance. He called it. Then he told you how the neighbors said a few months after he moved into his house that the squirrels had started to disappear. They had heard that Africans ate all kinds of wild animals. So the uncle actually mentioned that when he came to America, most of the outsiders, they complained that the squirrels, right, they have disappeared because they thought that African people are eating meat. So they thought that uncle has killed all these squirrels in order to eat, because most of the Americans, they believe that African people are Negroes. They eat all the meat, different types of animals, including human flesh. So can you understand the mentality from the very beginning, right? Chimamanda Adichie explains us how these first immigrations were neglected and ill-treated. First immigrants were neglected and ill-treated from the society. So even uncle explains the fact that when I came to America first, all my neighbors complained to me that squirrels cannot be seen. They thought that I have killed them and eaten them. That was the mentality that they had. So you can understand as leaders what kind of mentality that they had. That part is important. Okay, hurry up and write down. Please pass me a message. Okay, hurry up, please complete. Apunna's uncle picks her up from the airport. He buys her a hot dog and takes her to his house in Maine. He enrolls her in community college and helps her apply for a cashier job and says that his wife has to drive an hour to find a salon that does black hair. When the girls at the community college ask Apunna about her hair and how she speaks English so well, her uncle says to expect treatment like that. America is give and take. It provides opportunities, but you give up a lot to get them. Even if her uncle's house and life seems idyllic from the outside, America shows itself to be not exactly hospitable to black people, and this lack of hospitality is expected and seen as normal, right? So uncle accepted the fact that America is not a country where they will give you the proper hospitality. Uncle knew that, right? Uncle never argued with that. Uncle knew that. So that is what uncle said. This is something very natural. If you want to achieve your American dream, you have to sacrifice a lot. So what are the things Apunna is going to sacrifice here? Now, she did not sacrifice actually. She was about to sacrifice her sexuality. When uncle is going to abuse her, right? If she said that, okay, uncle, you can abuse me, I will stay in this house, nothing will happen. But she was against that. She was not ready to do that. Can you understand? So she did not give up her sexuality. Number two, she could have actually waited in a silent manner when her siblings were actually sending letters asking for gifts, right? She could have actually waited as nothing happened, but she did not wait like that. She supported them, right? Whenever she got gifts from her boyfriend, she never used them. She supported her family members. So that clearly shows us she never gave up her family ties. So what was the American dream? The American dream was you have to sacrifice so many things in order to achieve something. But Apunna, she did not achieve the American dream because she did not sacrifice. Even though she wanted to achieve so many things after coming to America, she never wanted to achieve those things, right? By sacrificing her family, by sacrificing her sexuality, by sacrificing her soul. She never wanted to do that. Can you understand? But most of the girls and boys, they do that. They sacrifice their sexuality, they sacrifice their family, they don't call to their parents, right? And parents can't actually contact them. They don't even come to the funeral even, right? They don't even come to the funeral even, to their mother and father's funeral even. So soon after Apunna got to know that her father died, without having any second thoughts, she went back. That clearly shows us, even though other people are ready to sacrifice themselves, right? Apunna did not do that. So we have to appreciate Apunna, whatever said and done. She actually chased the American dream, but she never wanted to sacrifice her life, her sexuality, her family ties, her family bonds, right? Her soul, right? Her personality in order to achieve her American dream. This is the place where you have to highlight Akunna's behavior. Akunna could not achieve the American dream. On the other hand, Akunna did not give up herself, right? Akunna actually stood up as it is because she was ready to face that. That characteristic should be appreciated. Hurry up and write down. Okay, we will move on to the next part. It is not easy to fulfill needs like a knowledgeable heirs alone, and most white Americans obviously know very little about black people or Africa. This paragraph shows us the mentality that people who lived in America had towards Africans, right? So they were neglected, they were not treated properly. This is what we can highlight when we refer to the story. Hurry up and write down. Right, okay, we will move on to the next part. You loved with your uncle and you felt at home in his house. His wife called you, and when a sister and his two school-age children called you auntie, they spoke Igbo and ate curry for lunch, and it was like home. So the place actually was very much familiar to her, right? At first, but later uncle became an abuser, so things actually got a little bit complicated. But before that, she actually enjoyed, right? So she felt that even though she was living outside the country, so he even also feel that, right? That is why we are searching to stay in our neighbor's place when you go to another country, because that place is actually a little bit unknown to you. So that is why you find certain place to live, certain place to survive, especially these relatives, right? Okay. So until your uncle came into the cramped basement where you slept with old boxes and cartons and pulled you forcefully to him, right? Um, so uncle actually supported her a lot, right? That is what we can see at the very beginning, right? Okay, we will move on to the next part. Squeezing your buttocks, moaning. He was not really your uncle. He was actually a brother of your father's sister's husband. So even though he is actually addressed as the brother or else uncle, it was kind of a distant relationship, right? So the distant relationship is actually mentioned here. He wasn't really your uncle. He was actually a brother of your father's sister's husband, not related by blood, right? So he had some kind of a long distance. Now this particular person used to actually abuse her. He used to touch her butts and try to abuse her. That is what it says, right? And after you pushed him away, he sat on your bed. It was his house, after all, and smiled and said, "You were no longer a child at 22. If you let him, he would do many things for you." So he said that you are not a baby. I want to actually engage sexually with you. If you say, okay, right, I can help you. So can you understand? That is what he said at the very beginning. If you are ready to sacrifice, you can get so many things. The question is actually whether you are ready to do that. Now here, uncle is requesting from Apunna, okay, if you can sacrifice your sexuality to me, if you can sleep with me in simple terms, I can help you. Now you are 22. So can you understand what kind of people actually lived in these countries? So that is what Chimamanda Adichie discusses about. Even though you ran towards your dreams, you have to be very careful. Can you understand? You don't have any security. No one will support you. No one will help you because this is not your native land. So she is actually passing a message to almost all the first immigrants, right? Even though you achieved your dreams, even though you try to achieve your dreams in these countries, right? Nothing is actually guaranteed. So this is actually done by the uncle. So uncle says, okay, if you are ready to sleep with me, you are now 22, you are not a baby. I can provide you everything. So he is asking her to be the, what do you call, ex-wife, right? Asking her to be the ex-wife, right? So Akunna is not ready to do that. Can you understand? This is the place where we should actually appreciate the character. Akunna is not ready to do that. She is not ready to sacrifice her sexuality. She is not that type of a woman. Can you understand? Okay, right. We will discuss the rest of the parts next week. Make sure to go through the recording. Make sure to watch the video again and again, right? And try to understand. Read the short story by yourselves and make sure to underline all the difficult words. And we will meet next week and discuss the rest. Thank you so much.